interviewing Joseph Carrabis in the author interview plunge series. Naturally, Joseph is going to be the first to take the plunge. Well, maybe the top 5 to take the plunge. And I'm Jennifer Day, and we're going to go ahead and get plunging started.
I should have a plunger. I should have a plunger right here. I should.
Plunger. Yeah, you should. Oh.
Shall I go get a? Shall I go get a plunger? And we can
swear it on your head.
Considering where that plunger has been, no, forget it.
All right. Well, let's start the questions by trying to figure out Joseph, presumed human, before we get into Joseph, future acclaimed author. So what are a few important facts that the listeners should know about you? Some little insights so that we can understand who Joseph is before we learn the rest of these things.
I don't know. I'm boring and dull. So you're asking the questions here, young lady.
Fine. Okay, well, good. Well, now, so we've established there are no interesting facts. Good. All boring and dull. All right, as long as we've set everybody's expectation. Okay, well, let's dive in. What do you find the most useful when you were learning to write, and what is sort of least useful or even destructive when you're learning to write?
Most useful when learning to write is to have a coach, an instructor, a teacher who actually knows what it is about writing that makes writing worth reading, that makes writing engaging, that makes people want to turn the page or flip the screen to the next page, whatever device they're using these days. There are a lot of people out there who are very nice people, and they can probably help you to some degree, but they don't actually know what it is about writing that makes it good. They know what they like and what they dislike. But the key to finding someone who's really going to help you is to find someone who may not like what you're writing, the genre that you're writing in, but still knows how to make it better writing. And that's a very important distinction. I don't have to like, if I'm working with somebody, critiquing their work, I may not like what they've written as something I would read. That's irrelevant. Can I help them improve what they've written? That's important. Most destructive, probably being around people, and I will break this in two. Most destructive is being around people whose ego gets in the way of their critiquing your work, or who, I'll give you an example. I knew this guy years ago. His name was Lenny. And to be honest with you, I don't remember his last name, which is probably a good thing. But anyway, the movie Gattaca had just come out. And whatever your thoughts are on the movie Gattaca, if you've seen it, whatever people in the audience may think of the movie, the thing that Lenny locked on was the fact that they were using Apollo moon vehicles to show that in the background people were going on space exploration. He thought that was the stupidest thing they could possibly do. And I'm sitting there listening to him talk about that, and I'm thinking, you thought the movie was about space exploration, Lenny, you idiot. Because if you've seen the movie, it's not about space exploration. I believe the tagline is, "There's no gene for the human soul," or something. It's a movie about desire, about belief in self, about being able to push yourself beyond what everyone else thinks you can do. something every working author knows something about. But Lenny got hung up on that. Lenny was destructive. No matter what you did, it was going to be wrong. And I mean wrong. Not incorrect, but wrong. It was morally wrong. So that's one thing. The other thing which is destructive are the people who are genuinely well-intentioned but don't know what they're talking about. And you don't know what they're talking about. You don't realize they don't have the ability to evaluate your work as separate and unique from anything they would ever do. Well-intentioned, you know, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. So that's those are the most destructive things. The most constructive things, I believe, is finding people who are at least at your level, preferably a little bit higher, a little bit further along the path, who can evaluate your work as literature, not as something they particularly like or don't like.
Okay. Very interesting.
Okay, no,
so
dull and boring. Let's get that straight. It's dull.
Oh, dull. Oh, yeah. See, sorry. See, I'm already ruining your reputation. Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about your very boring and mundane writing process.
Yes.
Do you find that you write more by logic or intuition or some combination of the two? And can you just sort of tell us about your writing process?
The first draft, the getting it down part, I would have to say, is pure intuition. I will have this flash, literally a flash will come to me, and blah, I can't get it down fast enough. And sometimes Susan, who, if people don't know, she's my wife, partner, and princess. You can see a picture of her on the About page. If I'm driving, if we're traveling somewhere and I'm driving the car, I will say to her, "Quick, get the notebook out," and she'll have to go into that thing between the seats, the armrest thing there. And we have a notebook in there with different pens, because in case one runs out, God forbid. And I'll start dictating to her. And she'll be laughing her head off. She'll like, okay, all right. Now, how do you spell that? Okay, all right. And it's just boom. Or if I'm at the keyboard, boom, I just can't type fast enough. And I'm actually a very fast typist, provided you don't really want to read it, because it's all misspelled and everything. But anyway, and I keep a notepad by the bed, because I'll wake up in the middle of the night with great stuff. One time I was reading, getting ready for bed. I was lying in bed reading, and all of a sudden I looked up, and some people who've read my stuff may remember the story, not completed. I put an excerpt out. Gable Smiled. And it's basically about a guy riding a horse, kind of. And I'm lying in bed, and I'm reading a book, and all of a sudden, there it is. There's everything. There's where they are, the plains that they're on, and the mountains in the background, and there's Gable, and the guy, and the horse, and they're going along, and there's, oh my God, what are those things? Oh, holy crap. Oh, and that's just, And Susan walks in, and she sees me going like this. And she goes, "You better write that down." So, yeah, okay, right, yeah. So I did. I wrote down. She wants to get to sleep. I'm writing down 4.5, 5 pages of story. So that's the intuition part. Richie and Phil is another thing that I'm currently putting together. I don't know what caused it to happen. I was driving somewhere, and literally the entire novel was boom, right there. And Just as a side note, people who've studied with me in my previous life, you'll know what's going on because I keep on looking over here when I say boom, there it was. You'll know exactly what's happening inside. But anyway, Richie and Phil, and the entire thing was right there. And I couldn't get home fast enough. You know, I had my phone with me. I hit record on my phone. I'm recording everything into the phone. And I started sharing with different people scenes that had come to me of this novel. And just describing the scenes, some people were in tears. Oh my God, I can't believe this. So that's the intuition part. Then there's the editing rewrite part, which is more logic, because you have to be aware of what goes in what order. And here's an excellent example. My writing coach, he gave me an exercise for a novel that I've just completed, The Augmented Man. And it was a brilliant thing, because doing that exercise, putting the actual scenes down, each scene to a card, like a massive outline or storyboarding, I was able to see logic holes in the story where the flow of the story was turned around in a couple of places. Excellent exercise. So it's both. I do not ever map out a story to the best of my knowledge. I don't remember ever mapping out a story and then writing it. There'll always be this flash of something which I will write down, and then I might map after the fact. Give you another example. A story that I'm working on, The Absolute Limit of Sound. I was reading an article in Science magazine about sonoluminescence. I have a little background in sciences. I should probably say that. Very little, though. It's boring and dull. Anyway, I was reading this article on sonoluminescence, and the entire, I should look over here to make sure it's good. The entire thing happened. The entire story came to me. And I wrote all the notes down to the story, what happens, how it happens, the final scene, which to me is, oh my God, getting to that final scene. That's the logic part kicks in, because now that I have all the notes down, I know where I want the story to go, to that scene. And it's putting all the necessary things in so the readers will not realize that's where we're going. But when we get there, they'll go, oh, wow. You know, you can't have it so totally a shock that readers go, how the hell did that happen? You have to have it so that readers go, wow, wow. And they feel like, yeah, that's right. I saw that coming. Wow.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So what do you love most about that writing process? What's your favorite part?
I suppose I suppose it's the fact that when I'm writing, I'm not boring and dull. When I am writing, my God, the places I go, I feel so bad. Genuinely grieve for people who may be knowledgeable, educated, competent people, but who lack imagination. I mean, I knew, you know, kids in high school who were in the honor society, and kids in college who made the dean's list, and they knew the book, but get them off the book and they were totally lost. They couldn't put those two diverse things together. There's a saying somewhere that a true mark of genius is the ability to have two conflicting thoughts in your head at the same time and make it work. And I'm not about to claim that I'm genius, because I don't believe that I am. But I will say that I work really hard at making things come together. Um, I love the part of the writing process which is pure imagination. There are times when I'm writing, and Susan's sitting in a chair close by doing something, and I'll be going, oh wow, that's good. Oh wow, that's good. That's good. Because I'm just blown away by what my hands are doing. It's kind of like the beast with 5 fingers, or 2 beasts with 5 fingers. The beast with 2 back. No, just kidding, folks. Anyway, and Susan will, when I'm done, Susan will go, what's going on? And did you know that? And I'll tell her something that's happening. Oh, wow, that's really good. And yeah, because she even has said to me, she's really used to what I put into my stories now, how my stories go. So when I surprise her, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Okay, well, so changing gears a little bit. If you could have been the author of any book ever written, which book would you choose? And why? We'd like to know why.
The Bible, because it sold a lot of copies. Can you imagine the royalties on that baby? Yeah. And I'm talking about all the editions, the KJV, right. RSV, New English, whatever
they're called. All of them.
I was about to say whatever the hell it's called, but can't say that when you're talking about the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah. You want to go outside of that? You want to go outside of the Bible?
If you have a second choice, maybe what would be your second choice? That might be
Upanishads.
Okay.
Imagine the royalties on those.
Jeez. Well, you have a singular focus. I like that. It's a little mundane and dull, though, I have to say.
Yeah. Actually, it's not about royalties. It's about telling stories. So, okay, if I'm to answer the question seriously,
you may.
It would probably be either a book of folk tales, folklore, or a book of myths. And not because they may or may not have sold a lot of copies, but just because they are what cultures are based on. Why is the Chinese culture so different than the French culture? Look at the myths that their cultures are based on. Look at the stories, the folk tales that those cultures came out of. And it's kind of like, duh, they'd have to be different, So if I were to answer it seriously, it would be myths and folk tales, folklore.
All right. Okay. So do you consider yourself to be a successful writer? And if so, why? And if not, what's success?
I believe that question actually, there's another part to that question which you didn't ask. So I will answer what you asked and what I think is also an answer.
Okay.
Am I a successful writer? Yes, because I love what I do. And people seem to enjoy what I do. So when you can be happy and make others happy, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. The other part to that, which you didn't ask, is am I a successful author? And one of my great mentors, A.J. Budrus, who's passed over, but I still honor and revere, he told me once that a writer is anybody who puts words down on paper, because nobody had personal computers when I met him. So anybody who puts words down, that's a writer. People who get paid for what they write, those people are authors. Am I a successful author? Well, building on the successful writer concept, I love what I do, and people so far seem to really enjoy the fruits of my labor, which is excellent. And I get paid for it. I am working hard to get more pay for it, hence my kidding around about royalties. Most people don't actually realize that my pen name is Stephen King, but you know.
You want to be more paid than Stephen King, huh?
Well, you know, the thing is I spell it differently, so. So anyway, so am I a successful author? In the late 1980s, early 1990s, I was, by anybody's stretch of the imagination, a successful author. I was according to my publishers, because I had quite a few, I was the third best-selling trade technical author in the world, which is not bad in the 1980s. That was at the height of the PC boom. And the market collapsed because all of a sudden we had the internet and you had books on CD and then books you could download. So nobody had to have authoritative texts anymore. Everybody became an authority. Anybody who knew how to post something online became an authority. So I know what being a successful writer is, a successful author is like. And I would enjoy being back there, definitely. Not actually because of the income, the royalties, which, yeah, it's nice. I'm not going to argue with that point. But being able to communicate with all those people and have them appreciate what you're giving them. Again, it goes back to the successful writing. It's not so much making a lot of money, but if I do, that's fine. It's more about people really benefiting from what you're doing. That to me is the successful author part.
All right. So you have made contact with some readers and fans, and what's something memorable you've heard from your readers or fans? Something fun anecdote. Well, not too fun because it's boring and dull. But,
yeah.
You know.
Fun anecdote. In Tales Told Round Celestial Campfires, the first story in there, Dancers in the Eye of Kronos, the number of people who have read that story and contacted me to tell me that they were crying at the end of it that just means so much to me. Number one, it's Susan's favorite story. So, you know, Susan's in good stead. They all cry. But I mean, it's supposed to be a very emotionally impactful story. So excellent. It would be one thing if they were all crying that, thank God I finally finished this. But, you know, they're crying because of how it ends, which is good. Another person actually, excuse me, put on Amazon about those wings which tire, they have upheld me. Somebody reviewed that story specifically and said how much it made her cry because of what happens in it and what the characters go through. And it's not that I want people to cry, it's that I want people to be emotionally engaged. Emotionally and intellectually stimulated and spiritually as well. You know, people responding is great. I recently put a short story, Sanctuary, which if anybody's on Patreon, they can read a copy of it. I put a short story, Sanctuary, through a workshop, and it's a flash fiction piece. And this guy told me that he absolutely hated it. He hated what happened in it. He hated the outcome. He never wants to read that again. And I was, oh, okay. He goes, and the fact that you did it in 900 words, by God, you are good. You are a really good writer to get me this pissed off in 900 words. Okay. And then another gem in Empty Sky, Empty Sky involves animals, specifically a dog. And one guy who read it, who reads a lot, wrote me, "That is the best dog chapter I've ever read." Okay, good. Then you got to turn that around, because I also, what happens is, I won't give you a spoiler, but a guy got to a certain point in the book and stopped. And he eventually read the rest of the book, but he let me know that he was so pissed off at what I did at that point in the book. If I was right there, he would have fucking nailed me. I went, so long as you're over there telling me that you
right.
read it, and finished reading it. Okay, good.
Maybe finish reading it, right? Yeah.
Yes. And he loved it when he finished reading it.
Yeah.
But he got to that point. And if I was right there.
That's right.
I'm looking at myself growl. I look good. I'm a very good growler.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we'll wrap up with my favorite interview trick, which is basically, what question did I not ask? Or what is a question you wish I had asked, or that nobody's asked you? Why doesn't anybody ask me this? And then we wanted an answer too, not just the question. That wouldn't be very fair.
I think the question that I wish people would ask me, and no one has as of yet, is, how did I get to be a male sex object?
Right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
I don't know why nobody's ever asked me that. Every year, People magazine, I think it is, has the sexiest man alive.
Yeah.
And every time I see that issue, we're in the checkout line, because it's in the checkout line, and I pull it out and I say loud enough for everybody to hear, "Damn, I missed it again." And it's great, because Susan just cracks up. And it's fun to watch all the other people trying hard not to laugh out loud. Like, I really didn't hear him say that, no. But
No.
the cashiers are like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I know. If they do, good. Anyway, a question nobody's ever asked me, and I wish they would. What's it like to be that profound? No? Okay, no, not that, no. Have you always been that much of an asshole? No.
Oh, recent development. Working on it.
Takes practice,
That's right. That's right.
In Empty Sky, and actually a lot of the stuff that I've written, when I have a genuine antagonist, I seem to have a knack for creating really believable antagonists. In Empty Sky, Ed, I forgot his last name, but everyone who reads the book, who gets in touch with me, says, "Wow, that guy was a real prick." Good. He was supposed to be. No, I mean, he was really a prick. Yeah. As I said, he was supposed to be a prick. And I don't often, if you read Tales Told Around Celestial Campfires, read the stories in there, there's not a lot of genuine antagonists in there. There's not an individual. One of the books I'm working on, because I have several projects going, is based on a true story about a triple homicide that occurred in Maine many, many years ago. And I open the book with the antagonist performing the murders. And I've shared it with maybe 15, 20 people. And they all go, "Did you know this guy?" No, I never met him like face to face. No. And wow, because you've done a really good job of making him a rotten son of a bitch. He gets killed, right? I, you know, buy the book when it's done. Well, yeah, but the book's not going to be done for years. So tell me. All right. It's one of those. So I suppose if the question would be, how do you come up with these really evil people? And they have asked that to Susan, strangely enough. Maybe they're afraid to ask me. But anyway, she will say, "Oh, they're all people he knew when he was a kid." And they're like, "Really?" Well, like that one guy, and she'll mention some character. That was a guy who didn't give him a job that he interviewed for, and he was really a rotten bastard about it. He was obnoxious to him. And Joseph came home and said, "I'm going to have to write something about him. I'm going to put that bastard in the ground." So there you go.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have. So thank you for taking the plunging.
Thank you for plunging me. It felt good.
You're very welcome.
Take care, all.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.